and welcome to all the book clubs who participate in this event every year. My name is Tricia Allen, and I'm one of the assistant principals here at Venice High School. This is my third year here, and I am so thrilled to be part of a school community who makes literacy the priority. It is my honor to extend thanks to the many who made this event possible. A very warm and special thanks for Cindy Hicks. Cindy, could you stand? Yay! She is our community liaison for the Literacy Council. Cindy connects us with the book clubs in the area and also assists with the sale of tickets and books. And she draws so many people to the event each year through her connections and affiliations. Thank you, Cindy. We'd also like to thank our group of Literacy Council students and faculty representatives. If you could stand if you're here to be recognized. Yay! Our students were at the Venice Public Library all last week talking to the community about this event, and we appreciate your efforts. Thank you to the Venice Book Fair Committee. I think I met someone named Don Hayes. And he represents that. Thank you, Don, for promoting this event. And of course, thank you to Dan Rubin, who has agreed to share his book and his ideas and experiences with us this evening. And lastly, we wish to thank the Gulf Coast Community Foundation, who has sponsored the Literacy Celebration for the past 9 years. Thank you very much. Please join me in welcoming John Thaxton from the Gulf Coast Community Foundation.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. My name is John Thaxton. I am the Director of Community Investments over at the Gulf Coast Community Foundation, and we have, as mentioned, for several years been a sponsor of this very important literary celebration, and we are pleased to help the Venice High School Literary Council once again to bring a renowned author to this stage. I began my own interest in politics right here at Venice High School quite a few years ago. I was particularly drawn to the many writings of Thomas Jefferson and his remarks on how important education is and how education is the foundation on which this republic democracy was built. And he also taught of the essential need to have an informed electorate. So tonight's speaker, Dan Rubin, is distinctly qualified to inform us on how our government really works. Mr. Rubin and I have had an interesting kind of cross-section in our career comparison. Mr. Rubin aspired to be an elected public official, but ended up as a high school teacher. I, on the other hand, aspired to be a high school teacher and ended up as an elected public official. So I'm not sure what's included in that, but I do want to, on behalf of the Venice High School Literary Council and the Gulf Coast Community Foundation, welcome you this evening and thank you for the opportunity.
Daniel Rubin grew up in South Bend, Indiana, and attended Indiana University for both his undergraduate and graduate education in American history. Afterwards, he attended Capital University Law School, which is in Columbus, Ohio, to receive his law degree, and he stayed there to raise his family. In Ohio, he practiced as an attorney and even participated in local and state politics. In 1984, he received a license to practice law before the Ohio Supreme Court and received one from the United States Supreme Court in 1989. He finally figured out that Florida has much better weather than Ohio, and he moved here in 2005. Since then, he has been teaching the students at Venice High School in United States history and government. I've been really lucky this year because I personally have him as a teacher for American history. It is one of my favorite classes because they make sure that we learn a lot and have fun at the same time. So without further ado, I introduce you to Daniel Rubin.
I think this is pretty good. Well, thank you for coming out. I'm not going to stand up here and read. I just want to give my thanks to the Literacy Council, Luann Frimmel and Ann Penny, and all the students who worked hard for this. We have a big presentation twice tomorrow with students. Looking forward to that as well. Our principal, Jack Turgeon, our assistant principal, Trish Allen. Thank you, John Thax and the Gulf Coast Foundation for their generous support for this event for tonight and tomorrow, and everybody that is involved with that. I want to give a special welcome to Chris Angerman, who is the editor and the head of Arolf and Company, who published my book. Chris, hard to see, he's back here. I also want to welcome Joe Newman, who's my grandfather. He's been an American activist for many, many years. Children with disabilities in Indiana. He's been an outspoken activist on a number of issues. He still remains that way, and I think most incredibly, he is still active at the ripe old age of 100. He turned 100 January 13th, so Grandpa Joe. Had she not pushed me to write this book, it probably never would have been done. So she's here videoing. She told me not to move around too much. So anybody that knows me knows that I can't stand still. So you all got a copy of the Constitution. I think it's interesting that in these current days with our politics, we have a lot of people talking about what's constitutional, what isn't. But I ask myself frequently when I see comments from people, do they really know what the Constitution says, or do they get their information from media? And so one of the things I asked was that we would go ahead and have this available for everybody to have one, because I don't know about the ladies here, for the guys, we put things together without instructions a lot. We always wind up with extra pieces, and then we say, what happened? And of course then our wives and our friends say, you know, you should have read the owner's manual. This is the owner's manual. So I wanted to make sure that everybody got a copy of this so that they could actually read it and have it. I think that every citizen of the United States should be familiar with the Constitution. And not only the amendments, but also the articles that go with it. Because most people, if you ask them how many amendments to the Constitution are, they don't know. And they also don't know how many articles exist. They don't know. And they don't know the difference between the powers in Article 1, 2, and 3 that separate the Congress, as well as the powers within one between the House and the Senate. Article 2, the executive, and those powers that they've received through the years under custom and usage since George Washington's day, as well as the judiciary. And the seminal case in the judiciary was Marbury versus Madison as far back as 1803 that said they have the sole right to interpret the Constitution. So when we hear people say, well, that's not constitutional, or this isn't constitutional, I frequently refer back and say, well, last I checked, you haven't served on the Supreme Court of the United States, so I'm not sure that that's a credible source for opinion. But I want everyone to have a copy of this because it's something that you can take home and review frequently, because all we're hearing lately is a lot of comments about what's constitutional, what isn't. So you might as well have a copy of it for yourselves to have. It's not a bad idea to keep it, since it is our owner's manual as Americans. One of the things that troubles me and what motivated me to write this book was the repeated surveys that came out, and I could see it myself, that the knowledge of American history has been slighted. We have probably the lowest time in our history, and that's no pun intended, lowest time in our history that we have lack of understanding of our true American history, especially when it comes back to the formation of our government and our constitutional system. I think that if you ask most Americans about the Gettysburg Address, they would ask you, give me the address, I'll plug it into my GPS and I'll let you know. Okay? They don't know what the Gettysburg Address is. They don't know that our system of government is the result of hard work from many people, but they were known as framers. They're not founding fathers. And that's something that disturbs me when I hear the founding fathers did X, Y, and Z, and I see it even in the local letters to the editor. Well, this amendment's been here forever, from the very beginning. Well, it hasn't. And one of the things that I stress in the book as well is that the founding fathers got involved with creating a system of government under what was called the Articles of Confederation. We had a loosely tied confederation. We were in name only the United States. Each state had their own court. There was no federal court. Each state had their own legislature, but the Congress rarely met, especially when it was time to harvest the farm. They didn't choose to go. Many would just leave. They didn't feel necessary to be there. We didn't have a standing army. We didn't have a national taxation to pay our debt. In fact, we had racked up a significant deficit from the Revolutionary War. And how were we going to pay for it? a lot of the founders had tried their best to do a confederation, and it failed miserably. Along comes about 1787, and then they get together and they say, what are we going to do? And not all the founders go to Philadelphia. In fact, we had a little fraud go on, a little sleight of hand. The delegates were told they're going to go and they're going to fix the Articles of Confederation. I'm going to pass through here. I feel like I'm at the outdoor theater and I went and got popcorn. And also, Clint Eastwood is not coming, so this chair is available.